I'm pleased to introduce our host for today, Mr. SVenkat. Venkat, as he's very popularly known to all of us, who co-founded Practus Advisors. Venkat is a chartered accountant, cost and management accountant, and a risk manager. He started his career with PwC, where he spent about 8 years. And then at a young age of 28, he was appointed as the CFO at Aeon's Indian subsidiary. What is interesting is that Venkat has experience across industry, practice, as well as an entrepreneur. And I'm sure that having him on the panel today is going to be really enlightening for all of us. Venkat actively mentors a lot of young professionals. I think a lot of practitioners will vouch for that, giving us career tips and guidance whenever that's needed.
I'll probably move to the first question. Maybe we'll start with you, Shrenik. See, if you kind of look at some of the functional areas, or I think you used a nice word for it, niches, right? So when you were starting your career, Shrenik, it happened to be US GAAP, IFRS, right? And you kind of boarded that train at the right time, and obviously it kind of turbocharged your career, right? I similarly remember 1997 when the insurance sector was first opening up. There were finance professionals who got into general insurance, life insurance, broking, actuarial services, and then they did very well for themselves, right? Similarly, e-commerce, probably about 3 to 4 years back, we found that people who kind of got in there, the career progression was very, very fast. So, I mean, if you were to look at today's choices that people have got to make, and today the practice, when we were doing our articleship, Shrenik, it was very easy, right? I mean, you could do tax and audit and some corporate finance and transfer pricing. I mean, you worked hard, the partner liked you, you pretty much ended up doing everything. But today it's an area of micro specialization and niches. So for somebody who say probably in their early 20s or mid 20s, and I think that's a question that one of our participants, CA Mohit Lunkar, is also asking, after CA what? So within the profession, what would be those niches that you think would be high growth areas in the next 3 years? And I'll probably ask the same question to Ranjit as well from an industry perspective once you're finished.
See, this question, I would like to kind of, if any individual is wanting to take a decision, and if I were in your position, three things matter the most. First is your interest and your aptitude. Every individual is different. So what is that excites you, where you put in your 100%, but the output becomes 200%. So you need to identify what your strengths are. And I'll give you the options, which or what three things which would be really niche here right now. And from that perspective, second is the timing, which is very, very important. At a point in time where I was starting my career, that time, as I said, US listing was not something which used to happen. It was something different, right? Or something unique. So what is in the current time, what is that unique aspect which you would be looking at from here to, as Venkat said, for next 3 years point of view? So between, if you look at from a profession perspective, ultimately, whom are you serving? You're serving your clients, and the things which people look at is either you are being looked at. Ultimately, you are being looked as a trusted advisor. So the trust comes in by way of how you give an assurance. So when you're doing an audit, and that gives you a satisfaction that is coming from you. And from a client perspective or the investor perspective, they are really valuing your output in terms of the assurance which you give through your audit reports which you issue. So that is one thing which will always remain, the heart of a practice. In terms of people's expectation, it is quite high at this point of time, and audit as a profession as well is changing quite fast. The way we used to do audits maybe even 5 years back versus the way we are doing audits now is changing a lot. So there also it's new learnings, and the way to deliver is different. So that will continue to be always evergreen if you have to provide that as a service. Second is with respect to advisory. Advice, when you come again, when you look at from your client's perspective, um, when you look from your client's perspective, they are looking for solutions. Now, we need to identify what is a problem statement and what is how I can provide a solution to them. In the today's time, as I said, while being chartered accountant, we are very close to providing accounting advisory or IPO advisory to people. But everything has been around technology. And as a professional, whether which is going to be a very niche activity, along with CA, if people do CFA or CFA, for example, and can provide services around modeling, it is very critical. Analytics is second aspect, which is very, very niche at this point of time. It's very much prevalent in the industry. So data analyst, while as a profession where you have data analyst specialist, is one bit of it, but you as a chartered accountant can provide functional expertise in the areas where clients are looking for solution. And the data analyst comes along with it, where you can acquire the basic skill sets and provide that service. So I'll give you an example where data analytics helps and you can differentiate yourself. So let's say when I'm providing services to a bank or an NBFC or an insurance company, or let's take an example of banks or NBFC, where one of the very critical aspect is how do I predict where my next loss is going to come from, right? So can I, as a professional, help NBFCs to make their predictive analysis by looking at the past historical experience of where the loss originated from, and if there is a trend, then this is where the loss is going to come in the future. Are there areas where frauds are likely to happen? So how do I plug losses? So with the experience of accounting, with the experience of internal controls, this becomes the niche. The person who's coming from technology and doing data analytics without functional expertise can go that far. But when it comes to you bringing in the functional expertise and adding the technology hat, that can really go a long way. So these are the few areas which are really niche at this point of time, and can give you a different career altogether.
Very helpful, Shrenik. Thanks for this. So very, very quickly, just to kind of a supplementary question, if you like, on what you just mentioned. See, there are these newer areas, right? Like, for example, maybe 3 or 4 years back, the entire insolvency and bankruptcy code came up, right? So are there emerging, I'm not sure what's the potential in areas like this, but if you say maybe look at transfer pricing or forensics, which are more specialized areas within, say, audit advisory or tax. So apart from data analytics, are there any other areas that you would probably want to pick? Got it.
Other thing is forensic is playing a very, very big role today. Again, it may sound it is again related to technology, because the use of technology has grown so much. The frauds are happening around the corner, and forensic is something is playing a significant role. So that is the second area I would pick up, where how we can advise our clients to do a preventive controls, where the frauds, areas are identified where the frauds do not happen, or when actually it happens, there are forensic activities to find out, where it originates from. The rest all, as you said, whether it is tax or the valuation, these are all going to continue, on a regular basis. But these would be a couple of areas where it should be really niche.
Got it. Fair enough. Ranjit, coming over to you. I mean, if you look at some of the functional areas within, say, the CFO's office, right, in a corporate, whether it's treasury, tax, controllership, FP&A, and maybe there are some other emerging areas as well. I mean, any inputs to our participants today on what would be the right places to now place their bets on?
Yeah, I'll take a slightly different answer when it comes to corporate, having been in all of those. And the reason is, uh, my advice would be, don't slot yourself in anything. There are certain verticals which are more of a career, like treasury, for example. You could go and start in treasury and go all the way and be the treasurer of a company. That's kind of like a vertical. If that's something you like, you can do that. But I would say you should keep yourself open. I mean, if you have a very specific uh, liking, then obviously go for it. But I would say I had a very clear mind what I wanted to do up to my MBA was done. Very clear. That's why I said at the beginning, I said, I'm going to do my BCom. I'm going to give 4 years for CA. Then if I do my CA in India, I'm going to do my MBA in the US. Because at that point, at least back then in 2001, CA, MBA, the lines were so blurred, it didn't give you any additional value add. And I said, I don't want to do that. But then after that, I said, I was open to it. I said, whatever, let me just learn. And to answer your question specifically, one thing which will definitely always be there is business support, business finance support. Now that business finance support can take various forms. If you could be in a traditional retail business and be the finance partner for that business, you could be, like in my career, I was kind of the CFO of some of the startups which we acquired. So that meant generalist. Then in the credit card business, I was actually, because it was a financial product, I was almost like the product manager. So I would say get the experience. Like my path was, I was clear, like, okay, I want to go down the CFO path. And to do that, you have to put a timeline for yourself. And you say 2 years here, 2 years there, 2 years here. No, let it flow. It'll naturally come to you that as you learn what you're in the field that you're on. So I was a lot in business finance support. I found that the most interesting. The reason why I found that interesting was not from the finance side, but because I actually love the business. So understand, I still get more and more involved in the business side. Even at the entry level, like, my peers on the business side would say, okay, this guy wants to come and attend all our product meetings. And I just listen, and I'm like, not thinking from a finance perspective. So I guess to answer your question, it's like, don't slot yourself. Be open to the ideas. And as you go along the way, you feel like, okay, I've learned this area, then go to the next area, right? Like you can keep learning more, or you might say, okay, I've learned about business support. How does corporate FP&A work? Now, I chose personally to join corporate FP at the end of my career, and my personal choice was, if I join very early, I might get a very siloed small portion of it at Amazon, versus where let me go when I'm so. But if you ask me what will be in the next 3 years, I will say, we are all going towards technology. So see that you understand the technology that you're partnering, and don't be very stuck in your views of this has to be done in a certain way. Be willing to adopt technology in finance and how it helps your business partner. Then it doesn't matter which specific area. All areas are growing. If you take tax, complexity in tax is growing because of cross-border. Each company is now cross-border. Transfer pricing. My niece is doing her articleship at ENY. And she was just telling me, I'm like, we pay you so much money to Shrenik and everybody for all of the advisory services, right? Because you have to get the sign off from your advisory services. So it can be in any place that you want. That is, I would say, but as long as you are willing to learn that technology can be used in a very unique way in finance and accounting, then you will stay with the curve. If you stay back and say, no, this has to be done this way because this is how I learned in my previous company, or this is what I learned while I was doing my audit as an intern, then you're going to be left on the wayside, or people are not going to come to you as a trusted finance partner.
Thank you. Thanks. I think extremely helpful, Ranjit. Thanks for that. I think some of the takeaway, Ranjit, from your side seems to be that, look, don't worry too much about the functional specialization right away, at least not when you're starting your career. Focus on playing a business partnering role and focus on learning how to weave technology into your role and stay open to opportunities, right? And then over a period of time, see how you can possibly tick all the boxes. If you want to be a generalist, try some time in accounting, try some time in treasury, in tax, in FP&A, but stay true to partnering with the business and find ways to stay on top of the technology, which in some ways is also what Shrenik mentioned, that rather than worry too much about the choice of specialization, is to say, how can I be relevant to my client? How can I build a position of trust? Right? As long as you're solving real life business problems, whether it's practice or industry, I think the message that I'm kind of taking away is that you will be relevant. I mean, as long as you're relevant, you'll always have a role to play. Yeah. Very quickly, trying to fill in for Miftaur, which is hard, because again he's a 40 under 40 by Forbes, and founder of is very interestingly a finance professional who went on to start a food QSR company in Wow Momos and Wow China, etc. But just for those of you who have joined this call, hoping to learn a little bit more about choices in entrepreneurship, right? So let me kind of give you a quick 2-minute input on that. See, honestly, about 10 years back, 15 years back, for a lot of us who came from normal middle class upbringing, getting into business was an absolute no-no, right? We were always told that, look, study hard, get into a good job, right? And make sure you got stability in your life, right? And today, I think that has completely changed, right? I mean, the number of entrepreneurs in their early 20s or even mid 20s that we meet is just phenomenal. And a lot of them are doing very, very well for themselves. These career choices are not necessarily finance centric, right? I mean, we have seen doyens like possibly Ramdev Agarwal of Motilal Oswal, or maybe a Samir Koticha of ASK Wealth, who created enormous organizations like maybe Nirmal Jain of IIFL, etc. But if you look at people who have also started businesses in non-financial areas, right? So you've got people like, say, Radhesham Agarwal of Imami, absolutely nothing to do with the finance world, or Rakesh Mago of Make My Trip, or Dhruv Stringi of Yatra Online, Niranjan Hiranandani, real estate, Pranay Roy, NDTV. I mean, these are all finance professionals who went on to kind of start businesses that have got nothing to do with finance, right? So I don't think the choices are necessarily finance centric. Obviously, they're completely neutral to whether you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter whether you want to start a global business or a local business. So I think it's a very exciting world out there because of disruption that's happened because of technology. I personally feel that the entrepreneurial space has now got leveled out. In other words, 20 years back, if you were to start a business, for you to dislodge an incumbent would have taken enormous amount of effort, right? But today, that gap between somebody who's already in that line of business ahead of you and you can be bridged, yeah, because probably you're going to be more nimbler. Probably you learn how to leverage technology better. Maybe you've got a better pulse of the market. Multiple reasons that can contribute to your strategic mode, right? So it's become far easier to start a business today. Second, there is a greater acceptability of new talent in the market, right? I mean, earlier, unless you were a 20-year, 30-year, 40-year-old company, consumers are not willing to trust you. But today you look at the number of brands that are proliferated, which have got a provenance of maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. There's a lot of brand acceptability. And third, of course, is the infusion of capital. I mean, today, the amount of money that has been raised by private equity and venture capital funds is not funny, right? And the number of investable ideas that they have is limited, right? So today there is a demand supply problem where in my view, there is an excess of supply of capital, and there are very few investable ideas that this money is chasing. So if you have got an idea and you've built some traction around it, I think probably today is the best time for you to try and raise funding. Unlike in the past, what is also very good is there is a lot of platforms that provide for angel funding. Earlier, you needed to have a friend or a family who had deep pockets, an HNI that you knew personally, for somebody to kind of seed invest in your business. But that is no longer the case. You look at, say, platforms like an Indian Angel Networks or Let's Venture or an Inflection Point Ventures. These are very professionally run platforms where they can help you raise anywhere between, say, 50 lakh, 1 crore to probably about $500,000, about 3-4 crores you will be able to raise from this. Of course, there are the larger Series A VC firms as well that you could raise money from. Yeah. So I think for those of you who are saying that, look, I don't want to necessarily get into a quote unquote a job, and you want to be in the business of creating jobs, I think it's a very, very big and a very dynamic and a very exciting world out there. Yeah. Look for your niche. Like when we started Practus, we were very clear that we didn't want to add an accounting firm because we knew there were already too many people, including the Big Four, who were trying to do it. So we said, can we outsource CFO services? We saw that as a gap in the market. We started it, right? Everybody has got to find a niche, which is an unsolved problem. I mean, today when we use Uber and Ola, we don't even think, right? About 12 years back when I was in Singapore, there was a Uber equivalent over there and was wondering, why we can't have this in India. It was an idea, but somebody worked on it, right? And they created $1 billion enterprise, right? In Ola, they were able to create that enterprise. So all concepts, I don't think you need to be a rock star or a CA or MBA finance to identify the market. If you keep your ears and eyes open in our daily life, as you're walking on the road, you will find that there are unsolved problems, right? If you're mentally we are open to it, you will be able to find your niche to try and solve. Yeah, I'll quickly kind of take a few participant questions that are there. Okay, so one question has come from a gentleman who is a tax specialist with the Big Four. This is Kiran Dhamejani. And Ranjit, maybe this question is for you. He says he's working with the Big Four in the corporate tax practice and he's trying to move to the industry. But because he's specialized only in tax, he's finding difficulty in joining the finance profile due to lack of experience in accounts. Okay, how do we deal with this? So working in corporate tax practice should not hinder in switching my profile is what he feels. Okay. So direct question to you, Ranjit. I mean, will Byju's be willing to hire Kiran in an accounting role?
Right. So the way I would answer that question, and I have a feeling I'm going to have this conversation with my niece as well. She's a tax, she's focusing on tax at E&Y. The way I would go with this, Kiran, is, when you switch, it's the hardest. You're trying to sell the next person why she should hire you, right? When you're going to join a new place. The easier way to approach that in my, and this is my personal opinion, right? I would say, go join the tax department in that company, right? If you're currently in a Big Four, you're in that. You want to break into the industry first. So two things you're trying to achieve. You're trying to get out of that, get into industry and switch, so to speak, switch your core domain. So the easier way is you go and join the tax of a company which you admire, work there for a bit, impress them, earn their trust, speak and interact, build your relationship and your brand within that company. And then it gets easier to say, hey, I'd like to transition into your accounting team or your finance team. Otherwise, if you think of it from the interviewer's perspective and the company's perspective, why should I might pause a little bit, like Kiran, yes, he is really good, or sorry, Kiran could be a woman, sorry. So Kiran is good, but I'll be taking a chance. I have a candidate B who probably is in the space. So why should I take a chance? I have to take Kiran's word for it. So Kiran, I would say, go through the path that you are an expert in and where you can say, I can do it. That's how I would have approached it, because now you've got into the industry. Now you, in the organization, people know you. They say Kiran knows, and we can take a chance on Kiran because Kiran has certain leadership skills, and skills like, bias for action. I'll keep throwing all the Amazon ones because I know those by heart. It's ingrained in me. But dive deep, bias for action, ownership. These are not functional expertise, but these are character traits. And if you have that, people are willing to take a chance. Does that answer the question, I guess, Venkat?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would totally second that. I mean, find a way of shifting into the industry in your specialization, and then you kind of find ways to expand that role as you go along. Shrenik, one question for you is about the qualifications that, let's say, a big four or a large professional services firm would be looking at, right? And you did kind of very briefly alluded to CFA. But beyond the CFA, CMA, CA, maybe MBA finance, I mean, are there any other courses or qualifications that you see your HR teams looking for while onboarding candidates into Deloitte?
Yeah, so okay, Deloitte, as you know, would have different verticals trying to service clients and looking for people with different skill sets. When it comes to, let's say, providing support to CFO services, that's where we are looking at now. One trend which is changing is we are going beyond CAs to look at as an alternative options. Today, it's a real challenge to find the right candidate, and a candidate to hire is really a nightmare. So the alternatives which being looked at as apart from CFA is FRM, for example. That's a very nice course, and with some technology expertise also is being looked at. So there are alternatives which being, but CA still holds the trustworthy certificate when it comes to as an entry strategy for people.
Got it. Also, maybe a follow-on question to that, Shrenik, is we have K. Venkatesh, who is asking a question that beyond these professional degrees, which are still more function specific, right? What kind of technology courses do people need to take? And you did mention about difficulty in hiring and possibly, and I think both you and Ranjit mentioned that we'd like to see candidates with some understanding of technology. So are you referring to actual experience in tools like say maybe business intelligence tools or RPA? Or are you expecting them to have some kind of a qualification or a course maybe on LinkedIn or Upgrad or any of these? I mean, what exactly are you as employers looking for? Maybe I'll start with you, Shrenik, and then go across to Ranjit.
Sure. So again, one has to look at what point in time the person is coming and joining, whether it is just started his career versus with some experience. When it comes to a person who is just coming in, we would have expected the person possibly, again, giving reference to analytics, I would have possibly thought if somebody would have done some basic course on R, Python, SQL, that helps because that is how analytics, basic courses would be relevant for him. When it comes to a person with a little bit more experience, we are 20 years back, this SAP was quite prevalent for people and was in high in demand. Today, there are many other solutions which companies are implementing, and very niche. So Blackline, for example, is becoming a very niche for a reconciliation tool, or Concur is there. Oracle is there. So there are many specific tools. If somebody comes with the specialization, you get hired. For a person who's just starting a career, I think there is not so much pressure. But yeah, knowing these basic basic analytical tools, familiarizing with those tools helps a lot. And to give you one context, when we look at 20 years back versus now, just to bring that context, knowing Word, Excel was very critical at that point of time. If you don't know, you are being considered illiterate because, how do you operate without knowing a simple Word or Excel, right? At that point in time. Today, the data sizes have grown so much where Excel is becoming irrelevant. That is where the context of, these analytical tools into day-to-day operations also, even though even in industry, I'm sure Ranjit would agree, people have started using SQLs and other basic analytical tools by finance professionals themselves. So these are now becoming like, if you do not know, how will you operate?
All right. Thanks, Shrenik. Ranjit, your views?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with Shrenik. Like, there is no specific. These are the 5 items that you should know in technology. It could be what works. And for most companies, at least I can talk on more from the US perspective. I spent more of my career there. Uh, People are willing to teach you if you're willing to learn. Uh, but you have to do some things on your own. So when I was at Deloitte in Seattle in the US, I pushed myself to go out of my comfort zone, and I started working part time in the data analytics team, the ones who used to do sample selection for all of our audit and data mining of transactions. I was very uncomfortable. I was like a lead in managing large clients, but I was like the junior most when it came to knowledge wise, when it, how you do sample selection. But the reason I started doing that, because transactions were becoming bigger and bigger. Like, for example, we were offshoring it off to region 10 in Deloitte and all. I think it was region 10. So, understanding how to do selection, how to do the SQL joins, how to do pull the data. Uh, I had, I remember in India while doing my CA, I took a course in NIIT. I don't know if it's still there around now, but and the reason I did that was I took a course on SQL. Trust me, that has helped me so much throughout my career, because even if you're not doing it yourself, when people talk to you, you can understand, like, if somebody's like, at least you can talk about, like, no, it's possible because I know the concepts. So but switching from example, a very good friend of mine, he's a CA from India. He's now in the US. He works with now TCS. He worked for Deloitte for 16, 17 years. And he was pure CA, but he started focusing on SAP clients. Then he started becoming slowly transitioned to SAP implementation. And now he does 100%. He's the engagement leader for the US for TCS for SAP implementations. So his clients are Chevron and all the big firms which TCS has. He's the lead client engagement kind of manager. So he knows the technology side, but he started off purely as a CA. So learn along the way is how you kind of approach it. But learn some basic fundamental skills which are current today, as you see it around in the industry. Things like what Shrenik said. Learn some basic technology and language, so just so that you understand concepts.
Right. Thanks for that, Ranjit. I think the only comment I'd like to make, right, to participants is the best investment you can make is in yourself, right? And in today's world, there's a total explosion, of courses that are available. And I also think that we should not make the mistake of confusing degrees with learning. These can be two completely independent things, right? If you want to learn, and I think there are some great role models, I would strongly recommend that you look at the LinkedIn profile of Mr. Sambasivan, who is a CFO of Tata Sky. I mean, I think he's a gold medalist, chartered accountant, company secretary, cost accountant, and so many other degrees. Every week, he's posting on LinkedIn saying that I've completed this course. And none of these courses have got anything to do with finance. They are all technology courses. And when I asked him, I mean, he was a keynote speaker at our annual get together, and we asked him, Samba, why are you doing this? And he's like probably 50, 55 years of age, nothing left to prove. But he says, look, we are a learning organization. And if I need my team to learn, unless I constantly reinvent myself, how will my team unskill and reskill themselves, right? So, I mean, with somebody with that degree of experience in seniority, if they feel the need to reinvent themselves, I think people like us have to definitely follow suit, right? I mean, we subscribe to LinkedIn Learning at Practus. That's our official learning platform. I mean, there is no dearth of courses. Okay, the problem is, we keep saying, I need time for, I need to get trained, etc. But really, the bottleneck is on time and on interest and the willingness, right? If the conviction is there that you want to reinvent yourself and learn new skills, I think today there is no dearth of courses, right? LinkedIn is only one of the options. I mean, you look at any of these Unacademy and other platforms, there will be adequate courses available. There are several related questions to this. See, I just one point that I wanted to amplify that both I think Shrenik and Ranjit made in different ways. See a practical example, okay, to see how you can introduce technology. So we were working with a hospital chain, and the problem statement was that a lot of money is stuck in insurance claim reconciliations, okay, with insurance companies. Very typical problem, right, when you're working in a hospital. And it was taking 6 people uh, full time, okay, in the month to try and reconcile with 15 insurance companies. The person that we put on the job, he said, look, why don't we use RPA to solve the problem? This guy went out, he found out a UiPath developer. He figured out, he sat down with the developer. He figured out how to implement the solution. He was able to deliver a 6 crore payback in cash flow terms to this client, right? Now, nobody told this individual that use RPA. He took a functional problem, which was a pain point for a client. He decided how to introduce a technology. Now, today, RPA is one of our best sellers in our firm, right? This was not an organization-led initiative to tell somebody ki please learn RPA, right? A lot of this actually stems from our own internal desire to evolve as finance professionals. Today, I don't think you can look at finance and technology as two separate things. I don't think that exists. I think if you have to be a good quality finance professional, it is assumed that you will have some degree of technology backup or knowledge that is already embedded. Okay, and I think Shrenik used a very nice word. I mean, not having it could almost make you illiterate in today's world. But not to scare you, but we are only saying that, look, if we have to stay relevant and ahead of the game, then I think this has become pretty much par for the course. Right, so at this point, we'll quickly take our first poll. Murtaza, you want to put up the question? So what is the number one reason why you are looking to change your career? Yeah, so this is to all the participants. Is it that your current role does not allow you to reach your full potential? Are you worried that you will become redundant because you're in a slow growth role? Are you unhappy with the learning opportunities? You feel that you're done with corporate life and you want to explore something on your own? Or is it remuneration? Or maybe the last option is the best option. Maybe you're just happy with your current role.
Hey, sorry, Venkat, while they're answering that question,
yeah,
I was just seeing a lot of questions over here.
Yes.
Maybe you could pick a couple of these out there, because I was just being like, quite a few questions out there. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been actually trying to weave some of those into
our
discussion.
Yeah, the poll can be live and we can go ahead also.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, perfect. So I think broadly it looks like 1/4 of the participants are happy in their current role, which is a good sign. 75% are unhappy, and the biggest chunk there seems to be that people feel they're not able to reach their full potential and they're not happy with the learning opportunities. So very interesting. I mean, remuneration is zero. So looks like everybody is in well-paying jobs. Very, very happy to know that. Excellent. Good. Thanks for that, Murtaza. Quickly switching on to some questions.
Actually, can I address that current role does not allow to reach my full potential? I'm going to question those people, right? That's what I always like. I think you and I were talking is you've got to define what your full potential is. If you say you're not learning anything new, that is when you start thinking of the next role. And the next role doesn't have to be the next company. It could be the next function within that same company, right? But how do you know what is your full potential? The way I would approach it, since if you're earlier in your career, is learn what it is there in that thing. Don't think about, I want to be CFO. What are the things I got to check mark? You might find your passion, and I would say just follow your passion. You have to wake up excited. Like that, I spent 16 years at Amazon and I spent only a year and a half in retail. And the only reason I did that retail, because back then they said, okay, to get to director, you haven't yet worked in the mothership, so to speak, which is retail. And I said, fine, I think I'm going to find it boring. They said, no, we'll give you for launching a new product. But I stayed only a year in retail because that was something I was waking up. I was not happy. That's when I realized, you know what, I've got to go change. So I would say, you know, uh, don't be so focused on I have to get to that next role. I would say get the most out of this current role and then, do it. Take your time. It's not a race. Some people get to the top early, some take time, but as long as you're enjoying along the way, then it's worth it.
I have one thing to add here. See, when you're saying that you are not reaching your full potential or learning, the question is, what is that learning which we are looking at, or what is the potential you are looking at? Uh, Even when you're doing, you are performing in a particular organization, a particular role. There are two types of roles, particularly when we talk from the perspective of, let's say, practice. When you start your career, you start as a doer. You in the organization, and within that organization, you go to the next level as a leader. Uh, okay, as a manager, and then further up, you keep growing within the organization. So it is, are you ready to come out of your comfort zone as a doer becomes very, very important, because you enjoy, and you are, and as more you do that activity, you are much more comfortable keep repeating those activities. And as soon as there is a change in role to, let's say, lead a team, or get more business, that really, you don't challenge yourself and say, no, this is not my cup of tea. So if you keep yourself challenging and you show your potential, there is no organization who can stop not utilizing your potential, because everybody is looking for what is the right skill set which you have, which needs to be enhanced, because that is for the benefit of that organization. So are you ready to come out of your comfort zone, identify what is your strength, and work on those strengths itself? I'm not even saying you work on a weakness, just add on to your strength, and people will be willing to use your strength for your own benefit and organization's benefit.
Correct. Thanks, Shrenik. So I see a question from Ganesh Yevlekar. I'm in the construction industry for past 12 years and wanted to change industry, but facing problem in finding job in IT, manufacturing and service. What do I need to do to upgrade myself and be ready to join any industry or sector? Honestly, a bit surprised, Ganesh, because I think finance as a skill set is obviously very fungible across industry sectors. And I think as both Shrenik and Ranjit mentioned, I think today there is honestly a big shortfall of good quality people. I think the demand is far, far outstripping supply. So I don't think there should be a challenge. I don't think having been in, and it's 12 years. I mean, sometimes there are career telecom specialists who have done 30, 40 years. I can understand, that could be a bit of a challenge, but I would encourage you to actively look outside the industry. I think you should be able to get through, is my sense. Again, any challenges, maybe you can happy to have a one-to-one chat. Anything you would like to add on that, Shrenik, Ranjit? I mean, do you see industry specialization as a bottleneck in moving?
No. Not from
yes
my
and no.
perspective.
Yes and no. So what is happening is, if you see today, people above 45 or 50, are becoming irrelevant when they're looking for changing jobs, unless they have grown significantly high in the organization. People want new blood when they're looking for change, or looking to hire, right? So there is and if you have been doing only one activity in your organization, and you do not possess other skills, it is becoming really challenging in terms of getting into other industry, or even getting into the same industry into different organization. So, reskilling yourself is going to be very, very critical.
Yeah, I totally agree actually with Shrenik, and it's quite scary, about how companies are being quite ruthless about preferring to hire younger people. But I would imagine in today's webinar, probably Ranjit, Shrenik, and myself are the oldest people in the room. So everybody else, you are the challengers, right? And I think today the industry and practice is preferring to hire younger people. This was completely unimaginable 20 years back when we were starting our career, right? Because there was so much premium on experience and age. Today, all that has got leveled out. Yeah. So I think this is a trend in your favor. Yeah. For most of the participants in this group. There's a question from Girija, who says that she's an MBA finance with 20 years experience in F&A, specialized in software implementation, process upgradation, and customization. I want to shift from consulting mode to industry. I'm very disappointed, Girija. Till now, I thought you would be a great candidate for Practus. But fair enough, you want to shift from consulting to industry. Whether learning BI, BA, and having degree will increase my chances. Ranjit, you want to take that one?
Yeah. Learning BI, BA, it's something, if you're hearing that you have to have that, but when you have 20 years of experience in it's what you always want to market to the interviewer is your skill set, right? There's never going to be that perfect, this is what I have. There will always be, but it'll be few of those. It's the skill set that the interviewer is looking for, or what is it. With 20 years of experience, you basically have different skill sets that are there. You don't have to know the same thing, but you know how to implement the framework, the thought process. That's what people are looking for. I don't know everything at all. In fact, I'm the least knowledgeable at times when there are specialists, and I'm always ready to learn. What I'm looking for is, do you have the thought process and the clarity with that at that level of how do you break down a problem, how do you solve a problem. So, and for the ones who are more younger in the career, I had at least 6 or 7 versions of my resume. I wasn't lying on any of them. It's just that on some resumes, some things were highlighted more, and some other resumes, some other things were highlighted more. I took the trouble, I was trying to apply to Expedia experience, but highlighted some other things. So take the time to see what that job posting is. What is it that they are looking for, and what you have, adjust your language there and highlight that when you speak with them. Don't talk about, whenever you're doing an interview, you're trying to help the interviewer understand how you will add value to their organization, and don't make that interviewer and try to figure out how what you've done will help her, right? So I would say you don't have to do a specific course to do it. You just have to see whether what they're looking for is how would you help them understand that it's a broad experience of 20 years. How would you best adapt to that?
All right. Thanks, Ranjit. There's one question from Anand Jha. He's got 8 years of experience in finance and accounts. He has just completed SAP FICO S4HANA course and looking for a job in SAP, but the problem is I'm fresh in SAP. Can I join as end user? Yeah, answer is absolutely yes. I think we see so many companies that are now migrating to S4HANA. It's good that you've invested time in doing this course. I think an end user is a good way to start, because you're being hired primarily for your functional experience in finance. But for a company that is trying to do the migration, I think you would definitely be an asset. Once you've been part of that migration team, implementation team, obviously the opportunities will start to open up as you go along. So next question, if I can come to you, Shrenik. This is from Manali, and it's a very classic trade-off. What she says is there's a gap between what you want to do and the opportunities that come, right? And sometimes you end up compromising by starting up in a career where we get the opportunity, but eventually you want to kind of go to, what is your real calling or passion, right? So how does one think about this trade-off? Should one be tactical and go with the opportunity, or should one have conviction in one's passion and stick with that?
So it's all about timing, what you want to do versus whether you're getting the right opportunity to do. And some bit is around what Ranjit mentioned, go with the flow. how do you, do your, even though, first thing would be that, yes, you should wait for the right opportunity, what you would want to do. But if it's not coming way, I would not kind of, spend my time waiting for that opportunity. I would rather get the first opportunity where I'm get into that and try and explore how can still I reach to my ultimate goal where I need to reach. So it's not a perfect world where exactly I'll get what I want, but converting uh, what I have, what I'm getting as an opportunity into where I want to go, that is how I would approach it and go with the flow.
Is this the question from Manali? Sorry.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I completely agree with Shrenik. It's like you shouldn't be actively obsessing over that of I need to do this, I need to do this. But if you realize that you're spending way too much time at the same time in your current role, it's not going towards the general path, then you need to proactively do it because you own your own career. Nobody's going to do it for you. Go something which is little bit parallel to it. You're getting closer and closer if you're really far away from it. But when you're starting your career and you say, oh, I wanted to go into advertising finance, I didn't get into that, and I'm in manufacturing. Okay, very different. Can I get towards something which is more software and services related, which gets me closer, some digital company? Then it says, you've learned, and then you market yourself, work in a company, or within a company, you say, hey, I'm supporting the advertising finance team. Like in Amazon, we had an advertising, it's now become a big business. But, like the CFO right now for Trade Desk, which is like a lot of large advertising, he used to support advertising within Amazon as a finance partner. So it could be something where you are again getting closer to what you want to do before you can make the jump. So you're doing it something relevant to that which later on helps you.
Fair enough. Thanks, Shrenik, Ranjit. There's one question from Sharvi Batra. How important is being an MBA to get to CFO? Also, to start on a CFO route, which industry should be our pick? See, honestly, I think it's got nothing to do with the qualification, is my view, and obviously I would love Ranjit's view on this as well. Like D. Sundaram, who used to be finance director at Hindustan Unilever, was a cost accountant. Manoj Bhatt, who is currently group CFO at Mahindra, is an IITian, right? And I mean, in India, people still have a misconception, and it's probably true because 90% of the CFOs are either chartered accountants or MBA finances. But you go to the US, you will find so many guys who come from a non-technical qualification, non-financial qualification, who are CFOs. I think what is critical, and Ranjit did mention about this, is really the business partnering mindset, right? Which has nothing to do with your qualification. It's got to do with the way in which you are molded, how you want to think about your role, right? So the more and more you do business partnering and help your business SBU heads to kind of succeed, kind of puts you on a fast track to becoming the CFO. On the industry, honestly, see, every single industry needs a CFO. I can't think of any industry where this is not going to be required. So I don't think that this is really to start your CFO, you could be starting with any industry. And as I mentioned, I don't think the career fungibility is an issue at this point for finance professionals. Ranjit, you would like to add something to this?
I mean, you nailed it, right? Like your answer is spot on. I would say ensure that you like the industry where you want to be the CFO. The days of CFO being a CFO, like my dad's time, where the CFO had a very specific profile, like you ensure the regulatory, financial, the audit is done, all the filings done, those are gone. If you're not a business partnering CFO, you're going to be gone. I have let go of CFOs because of that. Like I had a CFO who didn't know anything about the business. I learned about the business in 5 months, more than what that person had in 3 years. I'm like, how do you not know about what the business operations are? So, you're not, again, when you're hitting a CFO level, you are helping your team and your leadership and your business understand how to navigate through the business. That's what you happen to have more finance knowledge. So, and is there an industry? You shouldn't say my aim is to be safer. Yes, my aim is to be safe, but your aim should be to enjoy the industry. Like I had very clear in my mind, I will never go into a manufacturing industry. I just don't. I just don't find that interesting. And I tested it out by going into retail within Amazon, and I realized no. So I had CFO offers in some manufacturing, food processing in the US, and I said no, I'm not. So I would say there is no right industry, as Venkat said. It's very transferable. Once you're a CFO and you say, I know how to think and partner with my business and help navigate through it, whether it's through fundraising or keeping how to think through the business decision, it doesn't matter.
So, question from Mahindran M. At what point of time, in number of years, should you start thinking about becoming a CFO? Because we can cover various experience till 40 or 45 also. What is the mandatory experience to focus for CFO? Is it sufficient in controlling and business finance? I think we probably answered this in a different way. To me, Mahindran, I don't think it's really even correct to say that you can be a CFO only when you're 40 or 45. I mean, I know a lot of people in their late 20s who are CFOs today, right? So I don't think it's a function of age. I think it's a function of the mindset and what impact you generate. To me, the most important thing is if you are really serious about becoming a CFO, you got to figure out how the business makes money, right? And you've got to be there at the coalface, right? I mean, you've got to go into if it's a manufacturing or a distribution company, you've got to go there into the plant. You've got to go and meet distributors, got to meet retailers. You got to understand what is the consumer psyche, right? Because that's what really determines how the company sells. The second part you got to figure out is how are you going to add value in that journey? How can you help the company to improve the EBITDA, optimize the revenue, improve the cash flow, right? If you're working on those areas rather than getting slotted into controllership, business finance, etc., if you're focused on that value generation, impact generation, then I think this progression becomes a little bit easier. Lalit Kumar has got a question, Shrenik, possibly if you could take this. I mean, what are the opportunities for part-time roles in finance field? I mean, are the big four open to working with people remote, part-time, etc.?
It again goes back to, what is that you're going to help the organization with, what Ranjit alluded to. So if there are specialized skill sets and that is what you are bringing to table, I'm sure people would consider it. Or if there is a specific smaller organization who are looking for, a part-timer, then it would work out. If those skill sets is not there, it will be very difficult. That match should happen. And can I take the next question? I think that is a very nice question. So MBA is not important. See, whether it is any degree per se or any course which you have taken, whether it's MBA or CA, it is important when you get your first job or maybe the second job in initial part of your career. Thereafter, it does not really matter. People look at what is the skill set which you carry and how that is going to be relevant for me. When I am hiring, I'm going to look at on that basis. So the CA or MBA really does not matter. It's just it's the beginning of the career where somebody does not know your skill set is what you're looking at. Okay, what is where you have done your studies from.
Thanks for taking that, Shrenik.
But I would say MBA is more important than CA. I'm just joking. But exactly. Like why do people strive to go to Harvard and Stanford? It's for that, right? It's that first job opens doors. But then after that, then it doesn't really matter.
Right. I'm very happy about that because unlike Shrenik, I didn't clear my CA finals in the first attempt. But fortunately, after I became a CA, nobody asked me in which attempt I cleared. So Right. So, Prasad Arvind, and this is probably the last question. We are kind of in the last 5 minutes. Aditi is reminding me. So Prasad's very interesting question. He says he's got 14 years of experience in finance and accounts, and he's a team lead. And the next level, which he's seeing, is as a people manager. And he says he tried, but he was not successful. So, is there any kind of a course in team management that he could take up?
I think Shrenik is probably the better person. I will go in after Shrenik, but Shrenik manages a large team of professionals, and maybe Shrenik, I would also love to hear. Yours is a fast-paced industry and very demanding one. How do you coach? From the professional's perspective, and I can take it from the industry perspective. But I always, sometimes there are superstar performers, right, Shrenik, but management, people skills have to be, it's a different learning. You want to go first?
So this is more of a soft skill, right? Where you may not find a specific learning course for this. And the way I keep my team motivated is, as we discussed, initial part of the whole discussion, when is the person is going to look for a change? It is where there is where he sees that his learning is stopped. So when you are on the other side as a people's manager, what you need to provide is that how my team members are constantly learning, whether it is a skill set, or whether to go to the next level, whether he's becoming a leader, getting ready for being a leader. So that's how I would manage. I keep giving my team different learning opportunities at different clients, and that's how team remains interested to kind of continue in that in the organization.
And I think the question was, I was not successful as a business people manager. Is that correct, right? The one thing I would say is, as you start having even one direct, two directs, three directs, the number one thing when you start becoming a people manager is, how do you learn and focus on the improvement? I've seen people focusing on reprimanding when you make a mistake. Like, why did you do that? Like, that's not the way. You're never going to earn their trust and their passion to work with you if you're just there to find faults. Like, I realize when I talk to, especially, it's also a cultural thing in how in different countries it is. Having experienced a couple of like US and India, people go very defensive. I'm sorry, and I know this was the reason. Like, it's okay. You can make mistakes. You can unwind mistakes. You can unwind. But I focus on, what is the mechanism we are going to put in place? Tell me that so that we can avoid this next time. And the moment you focus on that, your team becomes more happy, is more respectful. Like, okay, this person is not here to just shout at me or tell me you made mistakes and this is wrong. How could you do this? It's not the end of the world. You have to change that mindset of yours from focusing on the error, then rather than how do you fix and put up, a systematic improvement in place. That's the only way. I've had people follow me everywhere I go. Then like, can I come to your team? Can I come to your team? And the only way you do that is you genuinely are interested in their learning, because their success means your success. You can't do everything. If your direct line does a good job, it reflects on you. It makes your life easier. So focus, even when the first direct happens, second direct report early.
Got it. Thank you, Shrenik. Thank you, Ranjit. Participants, we are completely run out of time. I see there are probably a couple of other questions, but we do need to sum up and wind this up in the next few minutes. So thank you both, Ranjit and Shrenik. It's been a wonderful session. I think I was particularly pleased with the level of interaction. I think we had a lot of questions, and I hope we have been able to do justice to them. If some of your questions, I mean, there were some questions on, which course should I take? I think those are fairly generic, and obviously it will be very hard for us to take those questions unless you really understand your context and your interest a little bit more. So, we deliberately didn't take up those questions. But otherwise, if you need to have a further conversation with us, I'm sure Aditi will share our email IDs. Please do write in. I'm happy to kind of stay engaged even post this webinar and try and help you out in whatever way we can. Yeah, so some of the key messages coming out of today's session, and then at the end of this, I'll probably request both Ranjit and Shrenik to take 30 seconds to share their closing comments, and then I'll hand it over to Aditi. So Shrenik made some interesting points about focusing on your areas of interest, and also about the importance of timing, identifying which are the practice areas or industry sectors that are likely to be in vogue, and staying open to those opportunities and grabbing them when they come your way. He also highlighted a very important aspect of a successful professional, which is how do you become a trusted advisor? How do you get into a position where you become a sounding board, not just a problem fixer at a tactical level, but how do you become a sounding board and a friend to your client? He also made the point about this being a great time for job seekers. I think it's a sentiment that Ranjit and I will happily second, that it's becoming very, very difficult to find the right people, right? I think probably if there was ever a time in the last 25 years where it was a job seekers market, I think this is definitely the time, right? For all of you out there who are focused on building the right skill set and experience, I mean, believe you me, I think this is the best time to be in the market. Shrenik also made the point about identifying the right problem statements. So what are the things that are keeping the client awake at night, and what can you do to solve them? He also made a very interesting point about certain professions being evergreen, like audit being an evergreen profession, but the way in which you approach it, the methodology with which you approach it is completely different, and whether that can be a differentiator for you to kind of grow your practice. Ranjit made a very important point about not slotting oneself. Let's not get too caught up with the titles of controller, treasury head, etc. He made the point several times that be a good business partner, figure out how to make your business folks successful, and automatically they will get very focused on making you successful in your journey to becoming the CFO. Let's avoid the trap of getting ultra specialized very soon. Try and utilize the experience to get into new situations, enhance your skill sets, and then the designations and the roles will automatically kind of come your way. What both Ranjit and Shrenik emphasize equally is get out of your comfort zone. Find ways to continuously reskill. And I think the theme of technology came out very, very clearly in today's discussion, that maybe finance and technology are not two things that are separate anymore. They have got to be woven into one. Ranjit also made some additional points about marketing your skill set, figuring out what is it that companies want, and possibly highlighting, and this was really more a resume writing tip, to kind of figure out how do you present your CV in a manner that highlights the skills that are probably going to be more of interest to the organization where you're looking for a role. Yeah. Only comment from my end is invest in yourself. It's never too late to learn. I mean, having done a CA or an MBA finance means nothing, right? I think we are all students for life. The most successful people are people who continuously want to evolve. And I think that's the nature of the game. I don't think anybody today can afford to say that, look, I've arrived and I'm set for life, right? And I think the very first question that somebody asked was what after CA, right? Till the time you become a CA, you're worried about becoming a CA. After you become a CA, the question is what after CA, right? The answer is that you're a student for life. Keep learning, keep evolving. Opportunities will keep opening doors. Keep your eyes and ears open for those opportunities. You will be successful, right? So any quick comments, Ranjit, Shrenik, before Aditi takes over?
I would say that, again, theme is go with the flow and enjoy what you do, and do what you enjoy, and you will be successful.
Thank you, Venkat, for inviting us. A very interactive session. So thank you, and I wish all of you all the best.
Thank you, Aditi.
Yes, thanks a lot, Ranjit and Shrenik, for the time today. Thank you to all the participants who've been very proactive in asking questions and making this webinar really interactive for all of us.